start our discussion with HTTP protocol. Let's start our discussion with HTTP protocol. What is that? What is a protocol? Anyone can tell me? So today I am able to talking with you all how it is possible. So basically, to understand this, so protocol is nothing but a set of rules followed to do the communication between two entities or two or more entities. So protocol is a rule, a set of rules has to be followed when you are doing the communication with someone else. Today, across the world, people has been able to communicate because we are having a language called English as a universal language, and through the English I can able to talk to anyone across the world and who is capable of who's capable of understand and speak the English language. And I can say English is nothing but a one protocol. English is nothing but a one protocol, because in the English also we are going to follow a lot of rules, right? The rules are nothing but in the English grammar, right? For example, I have written one statement called I go sit will there. So is it really make sense? Whatever statement I have written here, does it make sense? Do you understand what I have written? Absolutely you may not understand, because whenever I write something in the English I should follow the grammar. If I don't follow, you cannot really understand what I am writing. The same thing, if I don't follow the grammar when I am speaking, you don't understand what I am speaking. So here grammar is a set of rules established to talk, to write in English language. As long as you are following that set of rules in the grammar, you can able to talk to other guy and he can definitely understand what are you speaking. Similarly, if you come to the computers, but computers cannot talk because we have the mouth. We can speak, we can listen, but computers cannot speak. But still, even though computers does not speak, they need something called a English language to talk each other. So they have established their own protocols. The computers also established their own protocols to do interaction between two programs or two applications which are sitting in one or more computers. So in order to interact, in order to do the communication between two applications, let's think application is like two different programs. Either they are sitting in the same machine or they are sitting in the different machines, and they want to do the communication, they need to have something called protocol. And we already know what is a protocol. It's a set of rules. So set of rules has been established, and both the programs has to follow that set of rules to do the communication. So let me give you one more simple example. So nowadays everybody is having the phones. So can anyone tell me how do you talk in the phone? How do you talk in your mobile? For example, I call one of you. So what do you say very first? So as soon as you get the ring, you leave the call, and usually we used to say something called hello. May I know who's speaking? Then you will check the name who is speaking. Then based on the person, you will treat him like how are you, how is your day and all, and then you will talk about the reason for calling. And the mostly important thing is when somebody is speaking, for example I am speaking, you have to listen to me. When you are speaking, I have to listen to you. Otherwise, we cannot really understand each other what exactly we are talking, right? So that's a common protocol. That's a common sense. We are the human beings. We are having the common sense. That's why we can wait when somebody is speaking, and when you speak, somebody will wait for you. So that's a common sense is a protocol which will follow to establish to achieve the successful communication over the mobiles or phones or whatever it is. So, so what again these set of rules? So how do you start the communication? How do you convey the message? And how do you close the message? How do you complete the conversation? So to represent this piece of information, and we need a set of rules, and that rules will be established, and based on the rules we can do the communication between two computers. That sounds good. And if I ask you a question, in the computer world, what are the different protocols you might be seen till today? Anyone can tell me? What are the or how many different protocols you are familiar? Yes? None of you? None of you know anything? Okay, HTTP, HTTPS, SMTP, SNMP, what else? FTP, TFTP, what else? SSH, Telnet, sorry, TCP/IP, yes. TCP is a protocol, yes, and etc. I can say. So like that, if you keep count to the number of protocols which are there at present, so there are very huge. I have listed only few of them, and along with that, besides this, you are having n other number of protocols are available in the market which are for different purposes. So first of all, let me ask you one quick question. We already having a English language. Why are we having other different languages? There are different reasons. Every region might be having their own native language. And besides that, if you see nowadays, they are opening some schools to the blind children. They are opening some schools to the you know unable to hear, like deaf people. They are opening a schools to the you know physically handicapped or mentally handicapped people, to how to improve their mental condition. So why are they having a different types of schools and different types of mechanism for the learning? Because for the blind people, they cannot read the books. They need a different way of learning the things, right? For the deaf people, they cannot hear. They need to have their own way of. So because it depends on the need, you might require to come up with a set of rules, and those rules has to be followed to establish a successful communication. So we all know, like, we can use the mobile to do the communication, but when you come to the military, so military people does not use the mobile, they will use something else. Why? When you come to the traffic police, they don't use your mobiles to do the communication. They Why? Because the mobile communication is not suitable for them, because mobile is a one to one or one to many, but it's tough to establish the communication. But they won't have something called very quick communication to talk to anyone. So that's where they need their own set of rules. They need their own set of rules to do the communication among themselves. So means what I want to say is, depends on your need. Depends on your need. You might require a set of rules to do the communication, and each set of rule you can consider as a one protocol. English is a protocol. The protocol to create or do the interaction in the military, protocol to do the interaction in the traffic, protocol to do the interaction over the mobile, protocol to do the interaction for the blind people, for the deaf people. For the deaf people, usually we'll do something called gestures, right? So that's a protocol. So the similar way, when you come into the computers, you can borrow the similar kind of concept here. In the computer world, you can do n number of things, right? What are the things you can do? You can you can browse the website in the internet. You can upload a file into the server. You can send an email. You can you can see what is happening in my network. My printer is working or not, my server is working or not. You can do all those things, right? You can connect to the Unix machines, right? For all of this, everything is a different purpose, right? Accessing a website is a different purpose. Uploading a file is a different purpose. Sending an email is a different purpose. As verifying the network is a different purpose. Means, so in the computer world, you can do many different things. So what they have done is, so rather than having one single protocol for all of these, they have came up with different set of protocols for each need. They came up with different protocol for each need. And that's why at present in the market, in the world, we are having large set of protocols are existed. And I'm sure you may or may not know all of them, but I'm sure you will be aware of few of the protocols at least in your experience, because you will be using them so often. So one of that protocol is called HTTP protocol. So HTTP is nothing but a hypertext transfer protocol. Hypertext transfer protocol. Basically a protocol to exchange the hypertext between two computers. Here hypertext you can think of like a text which contain the information and references to the other information, or a text which contain the information as well as and formatting how you want to display that information. So that kind of text is called as hypertext. Usually this is a HTML. The hypertext can be created in the HTML language, that is nothing but a hypertext markup language. So these hypertext can be created by following the HTML language syntax. Already I provided you some of the important links to go through about this HTML, and what I really appreciate is after the class, if you're not really familiar with HTML, please go through that links and try to get some basic that will really help you in understanding the things very quickly. Okay, so using this HTTP protocol, hypertext transfer protocol, using that you can able to exchange the HTML content between the computers. That's where nowadays if you want to do anything in the browser, you are going to type something called HTTP colon server and resource name. So by writing in this format, you will be sending a request about a particular resource to the one of the server you specified. For example, google.com. You are trying to open a Google search page from the Google server by using the HTTP protocol. So like that, every protocol is having its own need, and every protocol is fulfilling a specific need to do the interaction between two computers. And so one among that is HTTP protocol, and HTTP protocol syntax pretty much looks like this. Now the next question you will get is how you are going to do the communication in the HTTP protocol. So basically the communication is nothing but computers cannot talk each other, right? So we are the human beings, we can able to speak each other, but computers cannot speak because they are simply dumb machines. So how are they exchanging the communication? How are they doing the communication? It's simply exchanging the messages. So computer 1 will send a message to the computer 2. You are having a machine A and machine B, and machine A will send a message to the machine B, and machine B will send a message back to the machine A. So like that, they can send a message each other to successfully complete the communication. But sending a message is not a successful communication, because if I talk in some other language, our class interaction will be successful. If I speak in Spanish, if I teach the Java language in the Spanish, will you understand? I'm sure you cannot understand because you don't know about the Spanish language. So that's where our communication is not a successful communication, because whatever I'm speaking you cannot understand. The same way, when both the machines are sending a message each other, so that's not a successful communication. They should send a message in the understandable format each other, able to perform interaction in the understandable format. What machine A is sending, machine B should able to understand. What machine B is sending, machine A should able to understand. So for that, both the machines has to be agreed on some message format. So part of the protocol, they will define message formats, and you have to follow that message format when you're sending a message from one machine to other machine. So usually these messages in general we'll call it as a request message and response message, and every message will have two parts. So one is called header and other one is called body. Every message will have two parts, header and body. So header is nothing but a set of key value pairs. Header is nothing but a set of key value pairs. So basically part of the headers, when you're sending a request, so especially in the HTTP protocol, a bunch of headers will be sending to the server. So what that headers contain? The headers contain the information about which client is sending, what is the IP address, and what is the browser, and what language this browser can understand. All this information will be sending to the server, part of the headers. And what is the resource you want to access, so what page you want to access, and cookies, sessions. So I'm going to talk about all of those going forward in detail, but everything will be sending from your browser to the server in the form of header. And apart from the header, and you have something called body. So body, which contains part of the body, you can send information you want to exchange. What is that information? The information can be a file. The information can be a parameters, contains name value pairs. For example, you are filling the form. You are trying to filling the form. So when you are filling a form, the form will have a value. So name, enter a name, then you will provide a name. When you say last name, you will enter the last name. Birth date. So what is your gender, male or female? So like that, you will be enter set of question arrays, part of the form. So either you might be sending a file parameter values, or you might be uploading a file. For example, in the Gmail you can upload a file, right? So it can be anything, but that you will be sending part of the body to the server. So and server will give you the response. Again, the response also contains same headers and body, and when the response is coming back, basically what the response contains. And again, headers is nothing but a set of key value pairs which tells about what the response you are getting. It's nothing but a meta information about the response. And the body contain the actual response which you are supposed to get. So that's most of the cases in the HTTP protocol is a hypertext message what you're going to get from the server to the browser, right? So when you're doing the communication in the HTTP protocol, this will be happening in the form of request and response, and request and response contain the format like header and body. Header is nothing but a set of key value pairs, and body contain the information which you're requested or which are intended to transfer between two machines. Okay. So when you're talking about the request or response, there are set of headers are going to be exchanged. And when you're sending the request, a bunch of headers. When you're sending the response, so other kind of headers will be exchanged between the client and server. That's called your browser and server. So I have a question: what kind of headers I'm going to send and what kind of headers I'm going to retrieve when I'm doing the communication. So let me show you one simple example for that. So today I would like to access what I can access. Okay. So here I'm having a tool called HTTP Fox. I'm going to show you how to get this tool on your Mozilla, but for the timing, just say I'm starting the tool here, and I'm going to send an email to where I can send an email. You can request any of the site. Okay. Google.com. See, don't worry. So there are many things will be happen, but you can see at least this one. So I sent a request to the google.com server. It is sending a set of headers part of the request. You can see request headers and value. So host, which server you're calling, user agent, what is the browser you're using to send a request. And I'm not sure how many of you really observe this or not. When you're trying to open the google.com in your mobile browser, automatically it will send you the mobile version content. When you're sending your google.com from your iPad, you will get the iPad compatible response back. And when you're sending from the mobile your browser compatible version will be written back. How this is becoming possible? Because based on the user agent. User agent will tell you what kind of browser you're using. So when you're sending the same request from your mobile, I'm sure this is going to be different. And based on that, Google can identify what browser you're using, and it can send you the response which is compatible to that. And what kind of content it can accept. So this browser can accept the HTML, but some of the browsers in the mobile doesn't accept the HTML. They might be accepting the WML. They might be accepting something else. And what kind of language you are interested to receive? English language. Some other browsers, the computer which is using Chinese language might be understand the Chinese language, not the English language. And like that, the set of information will be sending to the server, and server can understand I'm getting the request from where and what are they and what they are really looking and what they can really understand, what they can really accept back, and everything I can get the information based on that. And apart from that, what are the set of response headers will be written back. So what is the content I'm sending, content type, and what is the content size. This is in terms of bytes. And these two important information. You can see one more important information is something called status line. And if you want to really see what is the content is really sending back, you can see the big HTML, whatever is displayed here, that is the response you are getting back to your browser from the Google server. And this information you will be receiving part of the body, because body is the place where you can exchange the data, right? Okay, so this is about request and response. And when you're talking about the response, so you have to understand one of the important header called status. One of the important header called status. So I just would like to give you one simple example, but let me try to make it understand easy way. So when some operation is going to be happen. So when some surgery is happening in the hospital, usually, I mean, I don't know is that really true or not because I never seen, but so either somebody come out and they will tell you operation is success or not, or they can have some indication of telling you or notifying you operation is success or not, because it's a way of protocol. So based on that, the whoever waiting outside of the surgeon that the surgery room, they can understand what's going on, what is the status of operation. There's something similar to that. So in the computer world, whenever they are exchanging a message, whenever I'm getting the response message back, what kind of response? Because whatever request I send, the request may not be sent to the server because my internet connection gone. Or I sent a request, but the request what I sent is wrong. So I might be get some other response, because when you're sending a request to the server, you might be expecting the response in many different ways. So to understand what kind of response I'm getting, the very first important header you need to understand called status header. The status is going to tell you what is the status of the response. And basically it is a number, and it will tell you so what kind of status is. And if your status is starting with one number and after one you can have any other numbers, then it's a information message. The message, the response message you received is the information sake. And if any status code starting with the 2, it's a success. Whatever the intention of you send message, it was really success. And when you receive a message, status message with 3 starting, it's a redirecting URL. So what is that redirecting? I'm going to talk about that sometime going forward, but you can see somewhere else here. So what is the status here? 301. 301 is nothing but a redirection. 200 is a success. Okay? And if any message which is starting with 4, it's an error in the client's part. Error in the client part. When you're sending a request, you made something wrong. For example, rather than making a google.com, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say google1.com. You can see, oh, you did not get anything. Okay. It's sending to my local host. Let me try this. See here you can see 403. So 403 means it's a issue with the client. The request you're sending, the URL doesn't exist or the server doesn't exist. That's why you might get the 403 as a client side problem. And another type of status which is starting with the 5, if something goes wrong in the server, it will give you the the status code which is starting with 5, that will tell you what kind of error which is happening on the server side. So by simply looking into the status, your browser can understand so what kind of response I got it, and browser will decide how to render that response accordingly. The similar way how you are getting the different types of responses, when you are sending a request, you can send a request in different ways. The request can be of get request or head request or post, options, put, delete. So you can send a request for the different purpose. So these types are called as the methods. You can specify something called method when you're sending HTTP request. If you're specifying that as a get request, you are requesting for some resource, some web resource. The resource can be HTML page or any other. It can be image, it can be CSS file, it can be JavaScript. It can be any type of web resource which can able to access over the HTTP protocol. And you are requesting for some resource. When you say head, you are requesting to receive the headers from the server. So there are some needs. Sometimes you want to retrieve the headers from the server. And you can also request something called post. So you want to send a bulk data from the browser to the server. For example, you are uploading a file. So you want to send a large amount of data. And there is an option that is basically to, options is a request will be used to send to identify each other. It's most of the time the options request will be exchanged between the server to do the handshake, proper handshake. And put is also something to send a large content, and delete is for the requesting the server to delete a file from the server. In the most of the case going forward, we are going to learn mostly on the get and post, not other things. We'll not use other things often in our stuff. Okay, and whatever we learnt is a protocol, but again protocol is nothing but a spec. Protocol is nothing but a specification how your request looks like, how your response looks like. It's, you can imagine something like this. If you want to build a house, and you can have the model of the house on the paper. When you say design of the house, it's just a model, it's not your real house to stay in that, right? And if you want to have a real house, then based on the design we have to construct the real house, then you can stay in that. Similarly, protocol is a specifications, it's not a real implementation. Okay, so protocol is just a specification and somebody provides the implementation of the protocol, and that's called client implementation and server implementation. So implementation of full HTTP protocol is called web server. Web server is capable of understanding whole HTTP protocol because it's a full implementation of HTTP protocol. When you say client, it's not the full implementation of HTTP protocol, it's a partial implementation which is required to send HTTP request and receive the HTTP response. That's it. So I can say your browsers are nothing but a clients which contains part of HTTP protocol implementation. So that's why browsers are able to talk to the web servers to exchange the HTTP request and responses. If browser does not contain the HTTP protocol, then browser cannot send a request to the web servers. Can you able to send a request from your notepad? For example, you want to call the google.com from the notepad. Can you able to do it? Because notepad doesn't know how to send a request to the google.com server. So because notepad doesn't contain the HTTP protocol implementation. For example, some of you might be already aware of like Outlook, right? Outlook is sending email. From the email, can you able to access the google.com? You cannot do that because Outlook is for sending the message, sending the email messages. So if you have the implementation of that protocol, then only you can able to send a request, and browser contains the implementation of HTTP protocol. So you can see all these browsers like Mozilla, Internet Explorer, Chrome, Safari. So everyone will come with the HTTP protocol implementation. That's where they can able to send a request to the HTTP servers and they can get the response back. And so we don't want just a normal HTTP servers. So normal HTTP servers can only serve only the simple static HTML content. We don't want a simple HTTP servers. When you say HTTP servers, the example I can tell you, there's a server called Apache HTTP server. But this Apache HTTP server can only serve the hypertext, that is HTML content or CSS or JavaScript. But I want something more, because I want to create an application called dynamic applications. So what is the dynamic applications and what is the other kind? Static web applications. And nowadays you can see many different sites. Those sites are static because the information will never change for the time to time or user to user. If I go visit and if you go and visit, you will see the similar kind of content on this site. So those are the static content. So dynamic is nothing but your bank is a dynamic web application, because if you log into your bank account, you can see your account details. If I log into my account, I will see my account details. So, so the content what you're displaying is going to be changed for the user to user, time to time base. Those applications are called as a dynamic web applications, and usually these dynamic web applications you can create in the Java programming by using a servlet programming, by using a servlet programs. So I should require a servers. The server not only understanding the HTTP, also should understand the something called servlet specification. Those servers are called as a web servers, which provide implementation of HTTP protocol, and also which provide implementation of servlet specifications, is called as a web servers. In many of the interviews, people will ask you what is a web server, then you should tell this exactly. And in the market there are many different types of web servers are available. So they are like Tomcat, Jetty, and JBoss also contain the web server internally, WebLogic and OC4J, Oracle for Java, and etc. WebSphere. So there are many web servers are available in the market, and as per as your Java concern, you don't have to worry about that. I'm going to talk about it going forward. And your browsers pretty much come with the HTTP protocol implementation, which knows how to send a request and how to get the response. Any questions till now? Please confirm if you have any questions. Yes? Okay, so